Good morning, everyone, and this is Tapping into the Power of God. So today I'm outside reading my word, and I came across this scripture, which is Mark 5:24 through 35. So I'm going to read it to you because I think this is very important when it comes to our lives each and every day. So Mark chapter 5 verse 24, and it says, Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but grew rather worse. When she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be made whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned about and pressed and said, Who touched my clothes? This is an amazing scripture in the Bible, because this really hones in on the faith that this woman had in Jesus. You see, she was bound or in bondage for 12 years. This was in a time to where when women when Mother Nature came about, they weren't allowed in the streets. They were supposed to stay amongst themselves. They were considered unclean back in that time. So back in that time, they had to stay within themselves. So imagine this woman has been completely exiled. She had no friends, probably had no family, and she had no one to turn to. She spent every dime that she had trying to figure out what was wrong with her. She had been to every physician, and pretty much probably to the community, she's no different than a leper. No one wanted to be around leopards. They were diseased. She was outcasted. She had no one. How many of us go each day in and each day out feeling like our lives are doomed, and maybe we have nothing to live for? And that's probably what this woman was going through. How many of you out there, are constantly fighting for your marriages, or are constantly fighting to pay bills, or fighting on the job? Nothing is going right. What about your health? Your health could be out of this world. You could be faced with death or cancer, things that plague us today. So this is kind of like the same thing the woman with the issue of blood had been going through. She felt like she had no one and had nothing, and she was exiled amongst her own community. But she knew of this man named Jesus. She found out he was coming into town. And with her, this was her last option. Her faith knew that no one else could touch her and no one else could heal her. So her ulterior motive was, I am going to get up. I heard Jesus is coming to town, and I am going to get my healing today. I don't need him to touch me, but only if I touch just the hem of his garment, I will be made whole. You see, this was a mindset for her, and she had made it up in her mind. Nothing else was going to happen, and guess what? I'm sitting here dying anyways. So either she is going to sit there and die, or she's going to get up and fight through the crowd to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. Now I'm going to tell you something, folks. This just ain't a crowd. This is a crowd of sardines that surrounds Christ no matter where he goes. Frequently in the Bible, it talks about multitudes of 3, 5, 10,000 people that are surrounded with him. So to get through that crowd, you have to be pretty determined. I could only imagine. So people didn't recognize her. She probably had herself all wrapped up and clothed, probably to where barely her face was even showing, just so she could make it there. And so maybe people wouldn't recognize her. But she went and she fought through that crowd. She's probably elbow here and elbow there. She didn't care. She probably fell a few times. She didn't care. She maybe even got stampeded on. But she was going to get to Jesus. And guess what? She did. She touched the hem of his garment. And as you read here, Jesus stopped. He stopped and said, "Oh, Who just touched me? Because someone just got cleansed. Seriously, that's what the word says. Jesus stops when we touch him. Jesus stops when we have been healed from something. Jesus stops when we have been cleansed from something. You guys read that? He stops. And it's an amazing thing for him. I implore to each and every one of you out there that's going through some things. You can't figure it out on your own, and we weren't meant to figure it out on our own. I implore you to keep fighting through to that crowd. Keep fighting through, because Jesus has his hands out there waiting for you. He's waiting. You just got to keep taking that extra step, because that next step might be your last step to healing. I implore you to keep walking. Trust God and walk out on the faith that God has given us. And I'm going to leave you with this today, because I need each and every one of you to tap into the power of God. It's an amazing thing. 3 things that I do daily that helps me walk and to know that my faith in God stands true, because I trust him with every being in me. But I wasn't always like that. I had to fight through the crowd just like you. So 3 things that I'm going to encourage you today is, 1, you need to get into your word. You need to read it each and every day, even if you don't feel like it. Turn the TV off, set the cell phone down, forget about the sports and basketball. This is your life. And your life depends on getting in that word. You may not understand it, but we all had to start as babies. And God will open up the door and open up your eyes to what you need to know about his word. 2, pray without ceasing. Pray without ceasing. Get up and pray to God, knowing that you know that you know. You see, the woman with the issue of blood, she knew that she knew that she knew that if she fought through that crowd and she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, that she would be made whole. Do you trust God like that? Get up and pray without ceasing. Pray to your Father. Ask him for help. Receive the help and thank him for it. Start speaking it. Speak the words as though they were. And your faith will start increasing in God. 3, start fasting as if your life depended on it. I understand that some of you have medical conditions and you can't fast with food, but you can put those phones down. You can stop watching that TV series, and you can start getting into your word more. But all the others out there that may not have health conditions, I encourage you to fast the way Christ fasted. You see, when our bodies are minimized from the fleshly things, God starts opening up our minds. And he rewards people that diligently seek after him. Fast as though your life depended on it. 3 things, folks. Get into your word. Pray without ceasing. And fast as though your life depended on it. Again, thank you for tapping into the power of God. And until next week, please share this, because you don't know who needs to hear it today. You guys have a blessed week.